Have you ever walked into someone's home and noticed how clean it is? Not because they were expecting guests, not because they spent hours cleaning. It just stays that way. And you start wondering, are they more disciplined? Do they have more time? Do they actually enjoy cleaning? Here's the strange part. Most of the time, none of that is true. These people are not just cleaner than you. They are operating differently. And that difference is not visible, but it controls everything. Their behavior doesn't come from effort. It comes from how they think. And once you understand that difference, you stop asking how they clean so much and start asking a much more important question. What changed inside them that made this feel natural? What if this has nothing to do with cleaning at all? What if a clean home is not really about the home? Because when you look closer, this behavior is not about effort, it's about identity. It reflects how someone sees themselves, how they relate to their environment, and how they manage their internal state. A clean space is not the goal, it's the result. And most people get that backwards. The real process is happening underneath. In their thinking, in their standards, in what they believe they deserve. And once you see that, cleaning stops being a task and becomes a reflection. Your brain doesn't separate your inner world from your outer world as clearly as you think. The space around you is constantly sending signals, not occasionally, continuously. Every object you see, every surface you pass, every detail in your environment, your brain is processing it, even when you're not paying attention. And that's the part most people overlook. You assume your space is neutral, but your brain never treats it that way. Just background, but it isn't. Your environment is quietly shaping how you feel, how you think, and how your nervous system responds, which means before you change your habits, your space is already influencing you. There's a concept in psychology called cognitive load. It's the amount of mental effort your brain is using at any moment. And clutter increases it. Every pile of laundry, every dish in the sink, every object left out of place, your brain treats it as unfinished. Not visually, mentally. It becomes something you still need to deal with, which means your brain never fully lets it go, even if you ignore it. And when these signals stack up, they don't stay quiet. They compete for your attention, subtly, constantly, which means your mind is never fully at rest, even when you think it is. Research from Princeton University showed something important. Clutter doesn't just sit there. It interferes with your focus. It overloads your visual system and forces your brain to process more than it should, which slows you down. You don't feel it instantly, but over time, it builds. Your thoughts become less clear. Your attention becomes more scattered. Your energy drains faster. So when your space is messy, it's not just uncomfortable. It's actively making you less effective. Even when you think you're being productive. Now flip that. When your space is clean, your brain doesn't have to fight for clarity. There's less to process, less to filter, less to keep in the background. And that creates space. Not just physically, but mentally. You think more clearly. You feel calmer. You act with less friction. Nothing is quietly pulling at your attention, which is why people with clean environments often seem more focused, not because they're trying harder, but because their space is no longer working against them. But this goes deeper than focus. Cleaning is not just about clarity, it's about control. Because most of your life is unpredictable. You can't control the economy. You can't control other people. You can't control what happens at work. But your environment, that's yours. The state of your room, the condition of your kitchen, the order of your space, those are things you can change immediately. And every time you do, you send a signal to your brain. I can handle this. And that feeling changes everything. And this is where most people misunderstand everything. People who clean every day are not relying on motivation. They are acting from identity. They don't wake up and think, I should clean today. They simply behave in alignment with who they believe they are. They are the kind of person who keeps things in order. And when a behavior becomes part of your identity, it stops feeling like effort. It becomes automatic. That's the real difference. Not more discipline, not more time, a different sense of self. And identity doesn't come first. It's built over time, through repetition. Every small action you take becomes a piece of evidence your brain collects. You wipe a surface, you put something back, you finish a small task instead of leaving it, and your brain starts updating the story. Not dramatically, but consistently. This is what we do. This is who we are becoming. The more you repeat it, the harder it becomes for your brain to deny it. Until eventually, you stop feeling like you're forcing yourself. You're not trying to change anymore. You're simply acting in alignment with the person you've already become. There's a specific moment each day when this process becomes much easier. The morning, right after you wake up, your brain is more open, more flexible, more responsive to input. What you do in that window carries more weight than you realize. A small action there is not just a task. It's a signal your brain absorbs quickly. You make your bed, you clear a surface, you restore a small sense of order, and your brain records it. This is how we begin. This is how we operate. And that pattern doesn't stay in the morning. It spreads across your entire day. And that first action does more than you expect. It creates momentum. When you complete a small task, your brain gives you a reward. Not a big one, but enough to matter. You feel progress. You feel a bit more in control. And that shifts your state. Suddenly, the next task feels easier. Then the next. This is how momentum builds. Not through force, but through sequence. As William McRaven once said, if you want to change your life, start by making your bed. Because one completed action often leads to many more. But there's something deeper most people don't want to face. Clutter is not neutral. It's not random. And it's rarely just about being lazy. More often, it's a signal. When your space begins to fall apart, something inside you usually is too. Stress builds quietly. Energy drops without you noticing. Decisions get postponed again and again. And your environment starts reflecting that state. Not perfectly, but consistently. You leave things unfinished outside because something feels unfinished inside. And the longer it sits, the heavier it feels. Which means your space is not just a place you live. It's showing you what you've been avoiding. So let's correct the biggest misunderstanding. This is not about discipline. People who keep their homes clean are not stronger than you. They don't have more willpower. They don't push themselves harder every day. They've simply built systems. Their behavior runs automatically, like brushing their teeth, like locking the door before leaving. They don't argue with themselves. They don't wait for motivation. They just act. And that's the real shift. Not more effort, but better structure. Because discipline fades when you're tired, but systems keep running, even when you don't feel like doing anything at all. So in the end, this was never really about cleaning. It was about who you become. Your home is not just a place you live in. It's a reflection you interact with every single day. It reflects your standards, your habits, and more importantly, what you believe you deserve. Because whether you realize it or not, the way you maintain your space is the way you maintain your life. And when you start taking care of your environment, even in small ways, you send a powerful signal to yourself. I matter. My space matters. My life is worth organizing. And that shift is subtle, but real. So here's something simple. For the next 7 days, choose one space, just one. It could be your desk, your kitchen, or the place you spend the most time in, and maintain it every day. Not perfectly, just consistently. Then pay attention, not just to how it looks, but to how you feel. Because what you're building is not just a cleaner room. You're building a more intentional version of yourself.